What's up out there? We are back with another Gladiator build. This is formerly the Kinetic Bolt Champion. I have now moved it over to Gladiator, and you'll see why here in a second if you didn't watch the build video for the champion version of this. But essentially I went into critical strikes, and on the passive tree there is a increased critical strike multiplier and all that for enemies that are bleeding. So I wanted to see how that worked over here on the Gladiator side, and that's what we're looking at now. I made some other changes to it. The cool thing was this is already level 80 something. It was higher level. I think it was level 81 when I started. So when I had this on the champion side of things, I was fresh out of the campaign, maybe level 73, somewhere in that realm. It doesn't matter, but I was much lower level. So when I moved over to this side, I had the option of taking, or I had more levels to build with. So I was able to level up, or not level up, but I was able to have more choices on the passive tree selected. So it's worked out fairly well. More stuff needs to die over here. But you can see it's working fairly well. It's not doing too bad. Now, on POB, this thing has like 28,000 damage. It is not very high a damage. Oddly enough, this at level 84 and 28,000 DPS, it's only 17,000 on the tooltip here, but this feels about the same as my Cyclone build on Champion, which is like 450,000 DPS. It seems to take about the same time to kill enemies, so it kind of is what it is. On this, we have chance to inflict bleeding is only 35%. Nope. Chance to inflict bleeding is 60%. I make sure and not click on the default attack. So we've got 60% chance to inflict bleeding, and we are running. Basically what I did is I took all the gear from the other build and put it over here. So I think I was running this Moon Sorrow, and I think I was running this Hypnotic Thirst. I think these came from the other build. I did upgrade the helmet, the chest piece, and the gloves, but I ran out of gear. So these boots are still item level 40. They're still really low. I need to work on this. What I did is almost as soon as I got done making that video for Kinetic Bolt on the Champion, I think the next day I came over here and took all the gear from that and put it on this Gladiator build, wiped out everything I needed to off the passive tree and reset it. So the passive tree is basically the same as what it was on the champion side of things. I was using the same gear, but because I had jumped from like level 73 to 81 or something like that, I had some extra points to apply. I was also capable of doing higher level content, so I had to update my gear accordingly since my gear was set for lower level content. So that's kind of where we're at with all of this, where it's at now. I spent some time iterating on it. I was working on it a little bit, and then I ended up going back to the champion build, building that Cyclone, which I've got a video for that, and tinkering around with that. And then I just never got back to this. So I haven't looked at this for a few days, but I essentially took everything over here, updated a few things as I had more levels to play with, and I did do a little bit of leveling on here. Came to the conclusion that I wanted to come up here to these charge on kills and overcharge, so we've got a chance for a power frenzy and endurance charge on kill. I think that leaves me enough points leveling up to come down here to both Disciple of the Unyielding and Disciple of Slaughter. That should give me +1 minimum endurance and +1 minimum frenzy charges. I think we're also running Blood Rage in here. I thought I was anyway. Nope, maybe not. I guess I'm not. We could run Blood Rage down here. Clarity, Vitality, Vulnerability, and Precision. I could probably take this Vulnerability out because really the thing that I'm working a lot with is Mark on Hit and Sniper's Mark for the projectile damage. But at any rate, that's where I'm at with this. So I've brought all this over to here. This does play very well. The interesting thing is this passive tree, although it's designed for this Kinetic Bolt, I could look and see if there are other skills. I've got these projectile nodes over here that I've picked up. I could certainly drop that. We're into critical strikes, and we're into like the bleeding and everything from or crit damage from bleeding, or critical strike multiplier or whatever from bleeding. We're on dual wielding. I could easily swap this over to swords. Like this Bastion Breaker is just generic phys damage. It's not any special weapon. because I have to use I have to use a wand, and I am using dual wands, so that means I can take these block chances and stuff like that. That means that I could easily socket in 2 swords or something like that. And I might do that. I may switch this out to a different skill. This thing doesn't do a lot of damage, and I don't know that this is the best ascendancy for it, but the combination of critical strikes and bleed and all that fits really well on here. If I was going to do something different, I think it would come up to Shadow, because Shadow gives you, I am running armor and energy shield, so I could keep energy shield or armor energy shield or something like that. That also gives me access to the wand masteries that are up here. The thing with Kinetic Bolt is it scales based on, it's an attack with projectile on the tags. It also increases in reduction to spell damage applied to attack damage from this skill at 250% of their value. So you do have to use a wand because it is specific to a wand. It fires projectile from your wand. So it calls out the weapon that you need to use, and it tells you to increase, like, you can use the increased spell damage and stuff like that. That's great. But you can also take advantage of the wand. Spells cannot take advantage of these nodes, the wand mastery. So I've got that Caustic Arrow Trickster build that I've got. I may end up looking at taking this gear and moving it over there and trying this out on the Trickster side. I'd have to revamp everything. Like, I would have to start over. On this I think I might try and look for a different skill. I don't know if I need, like, I could take these projectile nodes out, but the rest of this is kind of generic. We're based on armor. We're based on evasion. So I'm in the neighborhood for cloth and chain. I'm in the neighborhood for iron reflexes. So we've got some options in here. I may switch over and do some things like that. The reason somebody was asking me why I was doing armor and energy shield, because it's dex or it's strength and int. So that made it easy to get the three blue sockets that I needed. That's basically the reason I took this, is to make the sockets easier to get colored. But like I said, I could take all of this. I think my Caustic Arrow Trickster's level 87, so I think I could just move this right on over. Now, the passive tree is a different ball game. I'd have to revamp that. I might try that. But on this build, the way it is now, the Kinetic Bolt, we've got a 60% chance to cause bleeding. And with that chance to cause bleeding enemies you kill explode, dealing 20% of their max life as fizz damage. Now, I definitely want to make sure and get 100% bleed. If I'm understanding this correctly, because I was thinking about this earlier, I like the Chieftain Explodes a lot better, but I think the Chieftain Explode is a chance to explode when you kill an enemy. This says bleeding enemies you kill explode. Like, there's no ambiguity about it. If I'm reading this correctly, they just straight up explode. So if they're bleeding, they will explode when they die, dealing 20% of their max life as fizz damage. So this is, I was thinking, I like the Chieftain Ascendancy a lot better than this. I think the fire explosions are a lot better over there, but they are a chance to explode. Whereas this one, as long as they're bleeding, it sounds like they will explode. So that's why I was kind of thinking about trying to do this with a dual wield sword, something or other. I'm not exactly sure what, but something that would synergize well with bleeding and crits and everything like that. I don't want to take something like Resolute Technique or Precise Technique, because then you never deal crits. So this would be something that, I would try to get swords that have more crit damage and things like that. So I'd probably try to do something in that neighborhood. I did have Jagged Technique on for a little bit. Bleeding you inflict is aggravated. However, I don't think my bleed damage is all that high, so I don't think this was the right move. I ended up swapping that for Measured Retaliation. I am running Divine Retribution, which I would probably swap over to Crushing Fist. The reason that I'm thinking about it now, the reason I have Divine Retribution is no other retaliation skill works with wands. I tried Crushing Fist. I tried Eviscerate, I think. They will kick off, but you can't use them because you're not using the proper weapon type. So those I think will work with swords, but they don't work with wands. Because wands are, I guess they're ranged or something. Like they're not... if I could spell correctly, they're not keyed to work correctly. This one just says retaliate against a blocked hit by calling forth a huge armored fist. dealing weapon damage. So I guess it does say weapon damage, but it doesn't say that you can't, even though this doesn't say it doesn't work with wands or a specific weapon, if you socket this and try it, it flat out just doesn't work. So I've tried Crushing Fist, I tried Eviscerate, they'll light up because I'll block something and it'll light up to try to kick off, but it doesn't work. So the other thing that I've gone into with this build is a lot of blocks. So we've got dual wielding, so you've got like As the Mountain, there's a few of these, I think down here, Blade Barrier, block damage while dual wielding, ambidexterity, increased damage while dual wielding. You've got feline swiftness for chance to block and increased movement speed while dual wielding, stuff like that. Dervish, there's more dual wield over here. It works really nicely with Determined Survivor and More Than Skill. So this gives you inherent bonuses from dual wielding are doubled, and then you get chance to block, attack, or spell damage is lucky if you've blocked recently. So the Retaliation skill, and with this measured retaliation, having a retaliation skill on here works very well. But the problem is I'm very focused in a very narrow arc on what retaliation skill I can use. So I feel like if I switch to a better skill, probably something I can do a lot more bleed and things like that with, if I switch to a better skill, maybe go into swords and things like that, this would probably feel a lot better with a different skill that I can dual wield swords or something like that, swap over to Crushing Fist, maybe get Eviscerate to work a little bit better. I'm not sure, but that's kind of why this build is where it's at. I also, like I said, I was kind of thinking about putting this over on maybe Trickster and coming up here because there's a lot of energy shield. I think that might be better on Trickster because there is energy shield and wand stuff up here. And you've also got access to projectiles if you come down this way. So I may end up swapping this over to my Caustic Arrow Trickster and change that out and then do something different with this. But anyway, I wanted to at least show this one off as where it's at because I thought it was pretty cool. I like Kinetic Bolt. I just can't figure out how to get it to scale up. Maybe on a different ascendancy it would work better. It feels good here, but there's probably going to be a skill that works a lot better here. So anyway, I just wanted to show off where I was at with this one, and it's kind of fun. You'll probably see this built as something different here soon. Maybe. I've got another thing I'm doing with my Tectonic Slam. We'll have a video out for that one, but I just wanted to show this one off. That's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.